Hello, friends. We are back after a little bit of a Christmas break. I feel refreshed and ready to talk about this finale. We are here to talk about the finale of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Y'all know I'm really good at getting ahead of myself, so I just want to talk about the episode in order first before I give my overall review of the season because it's kind of gonna fall into the finale as well. We'll probably only touch on 2 points and then we'll get into the nitty gritty. So the first couple things really kind of came off the back end of the last episode that came out, which I don't think I did a review for. But, basically Monica and Whitney connect because they are having a conversation about the night before, and the night before is when they were in that cave, and basically everybody was on Meredith about, whether she was the one doing the weird messaging and stuff with Monica. And then also they had that instance on the boat where Lisa had gone off on Meredith, so it had been a whole thing. Oh, and then also aside from the Meredith stuff, we get the thing where Whitney had presumably read Heather's book, but I don't know. And she came across, I'm so unclear on what the story really was, but I guess she came across this thing that Heather wrote about that Whitney did for her husband for their anniversary. And it was something like a nude painting almost, I guess. Excuse me if I'm mischaracterizing it, but I don't think it's important. But yeah, and Heather kind of was making jokes about it being like the Titanic. I don't know if you guys have seen the Titanic. And whatever. 1 + 1 = 7,500. And Whitney felt like Heather was exploiting her sexuality. Meanwhile, Heather didn't want to talk about sexuality on the show. Whatever. They got into this big blow up. Drunk at the bar. Boom. That's what happened on the last episode, and that's what we're talking about right now. So Whitney's just telling Monica, she was trying to go talk to Heather. Heather still wasn't really trying to hear it. And then Monica lets her know, that they were looking for her. And they asked, like, oh, where's Whitney? And Lisa's like, oh, she's probably somewhere being dramatic, which she, 175% was. And Whitney feels some type of way about this, as she would. Because she's like, well, Lisa was being dramatic on the boat with Meredith. And so, they have that conversation and we move on. So we get this really is at first I thought I understood it when I watched last episode, but this is really what confused the heck out of me. So we're getting a back and forth between Whitney and Heather, and Whitney's trying to explain to Heather, I was really nervous about reading the book because I didn't know what was going to be in there. Heather's like, well, girl, what are you talking about? Because I read it to you. And she's like, not only did I read it to you, but there was a portion in there specifically that I don't remember because I don't care, that I guess Whitney was uncomfortable with. I think it was the Titanic reference / joke. And I think that's what Whitney expressed that she was uncomfortable with, and so Heather took it out of the book. And Heather even says, and that made it less funny. But she's like, other than that, girl, I read everything to you. Whether you read it or not, I read it to you. So then Whitney kind of changes her story, and she's like, well, I didn't read the revised version. And Heather's like, yeah, but I read it to you. So they go back and forth on that quite a bit. It's obviously a semantics conversation. I'm leaning towards more believing Heather, not because of a situation. I actually really like Whitney, and Heather tends to get on my nerves. But the roles are kind of switching this season. I just think that Whitney has been very dramatic for the past couple episodes, so I would have to definitely feel like this isn't a big deal. But I'm touching on it because it happened. But at the end of this conversation, I don't know, have y'all ever you have these repeated situations with somebody. I feel like Heather has had repeated situations with Whitney, not only in general, but this season already, where Whitney is just being overly dramatic and doing the absolute utmost. And so my feeling was that Heather was just going along to get along. She's like, okay, girl, yeah, hug, rub your back. I understand things are all good. And Whitney not reading the room, not knowing reality. As long as her confirmation bias is affirmed, as long as somebody is saying, Whitney, you're right, that's all she needs to hear. So Heather was saying that, and Whitney's like, okay, great, good talk. And Heather's like, yeah, whatever. So that's the vibe that I got. And I would have gave that too. Girl, I don't have the energy. We're here, we're trying to have a good time. God bless you. And Heather obviously had more going on. We get to the meat of it all. So at the beginning of the season, they had already done this Heather getting a phone call thing on this trip. And I just feel so silly because I thought that this was like coming off of the Jen thing, and it was coming off of the Ultimate Girls Trip thing because they had gone on a trip for that as well. And the scenery was giving me similar vibes, and the balcony was giving me similar vibes to what Heather had on that trip, unless I just kind of made that up for my own confirmation bias. Maybe I'm Whitney Rose, but I don't know. At the end of the day, I thought that they were playing off of the fact that Heather had received that call that Jen was going to do a guilty plea. Even though we saw that in Ultimate Girls Trip, for the girls that saw that, I thought that it was happening on the season as well. No, ma'am. So we finally get to the finale, and we find out that the call has to do with this whole mystery behind what's going on with the social media attacks. And I'm just like, have I been sleeping all season? But also, bravo to Bravo, because that was amazing to me. Like, I love the foreshadowing at the beginning of the season, and then seeing where it winded up here. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're gonna get there. So she gets this call. They do the whole like shuffling, like they're grabbing the cameras, like, "Ooh, girl, get the tea, get the tea." And Heather's like, "Get out! No, this is serious." And then we jump to their dinner, like their finale dinner or whatever, and they are now gonna play a game. And I'm like, girl, games have been yanking our wigs all season, but I'm loving it. And hopefully they find something new, something niche next season to make it pop, because this season, I believe, is like having these dinners and like, let's play a game, and it turns into a tornado. So hopefully they find a way to excite us like that next season, because this was fantastic. But this game is all about the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle, to play off of the theme, and basically I believe that Heather had brought the dolls that they made when they did the pioneering day. So I love that we're circling back, and whatever doll that you have to ask that person like a burning mystery in the group or whatever. So we start, and of course, as perfectly as producing can be, as it has been all season, to their credit, Whitney has Lisa, and Whitney brings up to Lisa that, Lisa called her dramatic, as we talked about at the top of the episode, and Lisa admits it, and Whitney's like, well, that's not even really my point. It still really was her point, but I feel like she was taken aback by the fact that Lisa was like, yeah, I said it, so now what? We continue to move. And she's like, why is it okay for you to be dramatic on the boat with Meredith, but it's not okay for me to be dramatic? And Lisa answered it correctly, thank God. She's like, girl, we're both dramatic. And they did do this cute edit where basically they counted how many times dramatic was said, and it was said about 100,500 times. But nobody's disputing the fact that Lisa is dramatic. Nobody has ever disputed that. But Whitney, you're also dramatic, and you've been really kind of dragging it. So that really doesn't go anywhere. And I'm confused that they even kind of had that dispute, because other things were at play. But fine, whatever, let's get it out of the way. Meredith has Heather, and Meredith starts by saying, Heather, we've been friends. And I'm like, I don't really remember when they've been friends, but whatever. And Meredith's mystery is, hey, Heather, why haven't you stuck up for me more on this trip? Specifically when everybody jumped on me in the cave. But I think this is a bit of overshadowing, again, getting ahead of myself, because Heather obviously has the tea that we're working our way up to. So I feel as though maybe Meredith feel some type of way that she was almost kind of the scapegoat, and she was catching the flack for the social media stuff, when what really happened is something that we're about to find out, and Heather kind of shed light on already. Like, Heather's been doing the digging. So I think maybe it's more so of, Heather, you have this tea, so now how do you feel that you guys blamed me and it really wasn't me? Probably something more so to talk about at the reunion, based on sequencing of events. But Heather's whole kind of thing is, because they do discuss it, but the context given is more so that, and Whitney kind of chimes in too, is that everybody basically believed Monica. It wasn't just like a Heather thing. It was just because of the conviction with which Monica was speaking. And they're really good at saying that, like, oh, if you sound confident in it, we're going to believe you, which is stupid. But also, to their credit, they're saying, she was so loud and boisterous about it, but Meredith, you weren't really saying anything. So if you were going to defend yourself, why weren't you really saying anything? And Meredith, to her credit, was saying, I'm at a place where I'm not going to get all rowdy and rah-rah and screaming about lies. And if that's what leads you to believe that I'm lying, then I guess. But, like, I'm just not going to do all of that. So they're all making valid points. So that kind of segues Heather, because then conversely, Heather also had Meredith, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And she's like, well, I don't really have a question for Meredith. Mine is more so for Monica. And I'm trying to figure out who is the real Monica. And she kind of plays off of that thing where she's like, well, yeah, Monica, you were really strong in your convictions. And so, like, why do you think that we believed you and we didn't believe Meredith? And Monica's like, well, because I came with the facts and because I had proof and because she's just naming all of these things. And Heather's like, okay, but so it's not because you were telling the truth? And I'm like, ooh, okay, things are getting weird. And Monica's like, no, girl, like I just said, like I came with the tea. Like, what are you talking about? And Heather's like, well, I don't know, girl, because I've received some information and I'm learning that you don't really want to be our friend. You want to profit off of our pain and kind of play off of that and infiltrate this group. And then we get this flashback. Let me tell y'all something. The way that this episode jumped, skipped, hopped, flew, floated to different parts of this trip and the season. It was just fantastic. Like, I felt like I was watching. Have y'all seen Inception? Like, where you go like to a dream and then you go to a dream within a dream and then a dream within a dream of that dream and then they kind of work their way backwards. I felt like I was watching that. It was fantastic. I'm like, where is Leonardo DiCaprio? But we get this flashback to the ladies on the beach and everybody iconically on Twitter is referencing Big Little Lies. So if you have not seen Big Little Lies, it's a fantastic show. And they're like, it's giving me Big Little Lies tea. So go watch that. That's like the most hilarious reference in the world. I'm so happy that Twitter found that. Love me some Twitter. But yeah, we get a meeting with the 4 OGs. So we get Whitney, Heather, Lisa, and Meredith. And they're all on the beach. And Heather's extremely emotional. And I don't know. I guess maybe I'm a little bit cynical. And maybe if I had known of this Instagram that we're about to discuss, and it would have hit me a little bit hard. It definitely hit me hard. Excellent TV, excellent tea. Love how this season went, but like it didn't hit me to the point where I needed to shed tears. But basically, on this meeting on the beach, Heather lets them know that Monica's not who they think that she is, and we get like 17 dramatic pauses, and she's like, she's reality Von Teese, and I'm looking like, okay, please explain. And all of them are like, and tears are falling, and Meredith's just like, oh my god, I'm so tired of people coming to attack us, and I'm just like, okay, this is serious. So then we start getting like an abundance of like screenshots of this Instagram page, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is like a thing. And this is no shade to anybody, but I'm more so of I get on Instagram, but as it pertains to the shows and the Bravo teas and the Real Housewife teas, I'm more so of a Twitter girl just because I feel like that's more of an open forum and you get the hashtag and get to see the jokes and the memes and all that stuff. Whereas on Instagram is really where you get it on Twitter as well, but I'm saying it's more so on Instagram that you get like these blog pages and they're spilling tea. And I've said multiple times, like, I don't really get into the tea until it's fully spelled out, like on the show or in interviews. Like, I'm just not really like, tea is interesting, but it's just not something that I'm going to discuss because it's all, I just, to be frank, I just don't really have the time to get on here and discuss every little bit of tea that comes out. Like, baby, I also too have a 9 to 5. Like, it just gets hard. So I can't keep up with it. But yeah, they find out it's reality Von Teese, and then Heather goes into this extremely long but amazing and in-depth description of the fact that, she has this hairstylist who I believe the name is Tanisha, but I was more so taken aback by the fact that she was black. I'm like, that is so interesting that Heather's hairstylist is black. But, no shade or anything. I just was interested by that. And I'm like, okay, cool. And she's saying, that's her hairstylist, and she used to be friends, the hairstylist used to be friends with Monica, and we kind of take a step back from that. She goes down this sequence of events by saying, and it's interesting because I'm like, this is stuff that we kind of had to piece and puzzle together. That's what made this season so good, because I feel like Monica was such a polarizing character, and it left us to have to piece and puzzle her together all of these episodes. And now we're hearing, as I mentioned before, we're hearing the perspective, and it's always kind of more so been Heather, Lisa a little bit because she's been in the conflict with Monica, but consider that Heather wasn't in any conflict with Monica, but she's still kind of assessing, like, I'm learning some things about Monica, and we're starting to hear it from a castmate's perspective, as opposed to looking at the pros and the cons from the viewers. So that was fun. So we're hearing from Heather, like, things started to get weird for me because I noticed that when Monica is in conflict, she kind of uses information as a weapon. And I'm like, oh my God, I thought the same thing. Like, that's something that I was piecing together as this season went on. So I'm getting excited. And she's like, so that started to feel weird for me. And then she goes further to say, well, really, because that was a sequence of things where she used info against people and they showed like a montage of that stuff. And then she says it really hit ahead the other, like when they were in the cave and they were talking about, they were really on Meredith's ass about being the social media person. And Monica, they showed a clip of Monica saying, yeah, like, Meredith is the one that brought up these DMs to me and asked me, did I get the DMs? And she's like, also, I just got a DM 40 minutes before dinner. And I guess that sparked everybody like, well, what are the odds that you specifically will be getting a DM about the group or whatever the hell just 40 minutes before this dinner? So that, that raised red flags for everybody. So I guess that forced Heather to want to go and talk to Tanisha and be like, girl, what's going on? And she said basically Tanisha, the hairstylist, had like a moral conflict and she was trying to figure out what she wanted to do. And then finally she called Heather and she came clean. I really want to know the exact timeline of this. She explained it very well, but I would love to know dates and times because I just like stuff like that. Maybe it's the lawyer in me. I don't know. I'm just curious. But yeah, Tanisha basically, told her that Monica was behind the reality Von T stuff. She sent her a bunch of screenshots from that. But then Heather's like, fine, I have that, but I really want to confirm it. I don't know that she necessarily explained to us how she confirmed it, like tracking the IP address or whatever the hell, I don't know. But somehow it was confirmed, and this was a call on the balcony where everybody was scrambling. It was confirmed that it was Monica. And then they played that clip over. Fantastic cinema. Fantastic. They play that clip over and they're adding more to the clip as they replay it. So now they're adding the fact that she's saying, I can't believe it. I can't believe it's Monica. So we're finding, like, it literally played all, and I just feel like my stomach was just dropping more and more. Like, it was just fantastic. Do y'all see my arms? I've been in the gym a little bit. The girls, they're on the beach and they are falling into this tea, okay? Big Little Lies teas. Again, go watch it. You're going to live for it. And so Meredith falls in. Now, they get more... I think this was a flashback. I don't remember if Meredith said it on the beach or if this was a flashback. But we get more context into Meredith even saying, yeah, the only reason that she... called, it was a flashback. I forgot who she was telling though. The only reason that she called Monica about the DMs is not to tell her, hey, go check your DMs. It's because when she had seen the DMs, the account or whatever the account was referencing things that Monica had specifically told Meredith previously. So because those things were tying together, Meredith was also like, well, this is a little bit weird. And so she called Monica like, girl, hey, what's going on here? The context that Meredith did not give at the table in the cave, but now we're seeing that as well. So now they jump us back to the dinner and I'm like, oh my God. And like Monica is just like wrapped up in this cover. I guess it's cold outside. I don't know. Every time that they have dinner, it seems like it's cold outside. What the hell is going on? But yeah, so they're having dinner. And so we're back at the scene where Heather's like, yeah, girl. So like, what's going on? Like, who is the real Monica? Like, I know that you're reality Von Teese. And the key here was her saying, I love when they break the fourth wall. I love it. She's like, it's all this. They kind of skated over it. You can tell that they didn't really want to get into it. They probably will at the reunion, hopefully. But, there was a piece where Heather was like, you're a reality Von Teese. You've done all this stuff. You were driving by people's houses. You were spilling all this tea. And you applied for this show saying that you were a reality Von Teese. Because I was wondering, like, as this was happening, I'm like, so did the producer, like, is this something that the producers and the higher ups set up where they were like, oh, we've got this girl. She's got tea. She's got a tea, like, trolling Instagram page against these ladies that she's had for years. Like, and I'm thinking, like, how would they have known that? Like, employers do, like, a background check of them before they hire you. So I was wondering, like, did they obtain this information on their own and they're just smart and they did their background work or they knew? But then Heather's like, you applied for the show saying that. So it's my understanding that Monica applied for the show by letting them know, hey, just so you know, on the QT, the quiet tip, that I am this reality Von Teese lady. I have all this tea on these ladies. And guess what? I'm going to come in and I'm going to stir up drama for this show. So that for me, like, I was already just like, around the board. Okay, like not typically a fan of Monica, and production tends to piss me off. Not necessarily on this show; they do a really good job on this show, but still not a fan on either side. But that to me, I just felt like that was fantastic. Honestly, like from a moral standpoint, not great. From a TV standpoint, girl. After Heather gets all this tea out, Monica's still wrapped up in her blanket, and she's like, and like taking her time to kind of like assess. I'm sure that there was some editing to make the breaks a little bit longer, so I'm not being dramatic, but she still felt like she was taking some breaks, and then she's finally like, well, that's not entirely true. So at this point, the ladies all kind of like get up, and they're like, okay, so what are you saying? And she's like, I mean, it's not entirely true, meaning like, parts of it are true, but parts are not. So at this point, I think it was just Whitney. I don't know if it was everybody, but everybody kind of forms to like go sit at one side of the table, even Angie. And, Monica's kind of at her end. They're like, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And they're all kind of just going in on her at once. And Monica's not, I don't want to say she's not getting an opportunity to respond, because she was saying that, but I didn't feel that way. I felt like they were saying, girl, what's going on? And they were leaving pauses at the end. But Monica was too focused on trying to say, I'm not the only one behind it. That's important information, but I think it's kind of immaterial in this moment, right? Because what they're trying to figure out is, what is your involvement? And I do like that they adjusted the conversation and the questioning, which Heather even highlighted. She's like, okay, well, let me ask you in this way. Because Monica was trying to be strategic with how she answered, and she was trying to, allocate the blame as opposed to saying, this is what Monica did. So they start specifically asking her, what was the part that you played in it? And she still doesn't really say. She says she alleges what she didn't do. And she's saying, it wasn't my page, it was Tanisha's page. And so that's as far as they get. There's just a lot of yelling because they feel like she's deflecting. Angie kind of hops in onto like some kiki type of thing. She's kind of being funny about it. And Monica kind of calls her out. And she's like, don't let me tell them what your involvement is. So I'm thinking there's really tea there. And I'm thinking that Angie was involved. Look, they showed screenshots of Angie like kikiing and cackling with the page, like responding to stories and ha-ha-ing and LOLing and blah, blah, blah. Is that messy of Angie? Yes. Is that some weird behavior of Angie? Yes. Is that being involved with the page from a standpoint of trying to infiltrate the group and spreading tea? No. So I won't call it low-hanging fruit, but I will say that I understand, but I don't think Monica had any points there. And then she kind of gets into a back and forth with Lisa, and she's, saying the same stuff about Lisa, calling her, old and all this other stuff. Still not a read to me. Obviously, the Monica fans on Twitter thought it was a read. I don't think so. Let's move on. But basically, Monica's whole thing is, there were multiple people behind this account, and she doesn't feel like having this burner page was a bad thing, right? Because they dismiss her, and she's telling us this in the confessional now. They're like, girl, you need to leave, and they cry together and they hug, whatever. So in the confessional, she's telling us she doesn't feel like it was a bad thing. It's her stance that the page was being used to expose Jen Shaw, and the other ladies were just casualties. Let's break that down. She said specifically in the episode that there was footage that she was secretly recording of Jen for the I can't think of what I want. I guess I would say the investigator that was working on Jen's case. I don't know their title because they blanked it out. But she was recording this footage for the case that was happening, the indictment that was happening against Jen. And then she subsequently used this footage to put it out to the public on Instagram, which I'm sure has to be some level of illegal unless the case was already over. I don't know. I'm sure she wasn't supposed to be doing it, but she did it. And so my point in saying all that is this Instagram page was not moving the needle to get Jen into jail because that was already happening. So the people that are on Twitter supporting Monica's argument and saying like, oh, the page wasn't bad and it was being used for Jen. Jen's wrong. Like Jen is the one that we already know that. That case was already happening. Jen was already going to jail, allegedly. So there's no way in hell that y'all think that Monica Garcia's Instagram trolling page is what moved the needle for Jen to be brought to justice. Like, honestly, there's such a large level of beef for real that has to happen in this community. Like, seriously. And then also, because Heather gave a really long speech, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Like, honestly, Heather has really risen to the occasion for me this season. And she's basically saying, like, Jen was this lady that she really rolled or die for. And, she was, like, covering up for her and, like, trying to be her friend. And then she was explaining that she saw some similarities between Jen and Monica. And then she also drops a bomb that Jen was the one that gave her the black eye. Still gagged the hell out of me. I feel like the girls are trying to take away from Heather because they are annoyed with her and they want to root for Monica. So they were trying to act like that wasn't a huge reveal. Like, oh, we already knew that. We suspected that. But I do think that it's still me being the type of person, y'all know I don't get easily excited, but I do still think it's a bomb being dropped, and I do think it's exciting to hear it now in this context at this time. Like, I feel like the pieces have dropped at the perfect time, and again, perfect cinema. So bravo to Heather. But obviously that's something else that we're gonna have to talk about more at the reunion. Fine. But in using that, there's an argument now on Twitter that, oh, well, Heather is more upset with Monica for having this trolling page than she is with Jen, who, did the crime. And my whole thing is, that's not what's happening, right? And then people were also mischaracterizing it to say, oh, Heather's saying that she was covering up for Jen's crimes, but she feels some type of way about Monica. That also didn't happen. At the end of the day, nobody knew that Jen had done those crimes until Jen admitted that she did those crimes. We speculated that she did, but nobody knew that. And we already knew that Heather was being weird and sticking up for Jen blindly, right? We didn't know the results, but we always felt like Jen was an asshole regardless, and Heather was up her ass and following behind her. That's always been the issue. That's why nobody liked Heather to begin with. So I think it's a weird juxtaposition to say like, oh, well, Heather should be more mad at Jen than she is at Monica. Those things are going to happen at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive, and the situations literally are not the same at all. So it's just, I'm saying all this to say it's so weird to see the unraveling of the Monica character, that puzzle that we had to put together, and it turns out that Monica is this huge, enormous fraud that it seems like the masses didn't necessarily want to see. They were choosing not to see it because, again, she was a polarizing character, which is perfect for a show like this because it leads the audience to have to pick a side on her. And it was pieced together so well within the season where there was conflict happening more so around her. She was in the conflict, but she wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't say, she wasn't necessarily such a main character. She contributed in ways where certain people wanted to hold her accountable, myself, and certain people did not, the masses. So that's the way that she was kind of included in that polarizing way, but then it turns out that she's kind of at the head of all of it. So it was like plot twist of the century. But still, she has these fans that were fighting and trugging along hard as she was getting figured out, and everybody, including Heather, were like, something's not right about Monica. And so her audience was just still fighting for her. And then finally, we're finding out this is the proof. Like, she literally has this page that she's been using, what they say, 3 to 4 years, trolling all of these ladies, not just Jen, at her own volition, wasn't moving the needle or anything, just wanted to do it, driving past these people's houses, being a weirdo. And then she uses this subsequently to become a part of the show, applies for the show, letting them know that she has this, and comes on the show as somebody saying, literally in episode 1, I have all the tea on these ladies. I have all the tea on these ladies. This was her goal. And she infiltrated this group, and she never shared this information with anybody. She just played victim all the time, perpetually a victim the whole entire season. But you came on this show in weird pretenses. That's it. Like, I had to tell my friend, no shade to my friend, I love my friend, but I had to tell my friend, like, using those arguments, trying to compare the Heather thing, trying to compare the Jen thing, like, even the Angie, the other Angie H, I think it was, whose husband created the troll account, like, they didn't hold her accountable. That was a whole storyline. They talked about it at the reunion. Like, what are y'all talking about? So it just feels like people are picking the lowest hanging of the fruit because they don't want to acknowledge the plain fact that Monica is a weirdo. Like, why can't we just talk about Monica being a weirdo? We know Heather's faults. We know Angie H's faults. We know that Jen is in jail for 6 years. Those are all things that we know. Monica is a polarizing character that we've been trying to figure out what the hell is going on here. Now we know, and the girls still don't want to call a spade a spade. I think that is crazy. But, Twitter was all of a Twitter last night. It was just so much going on. That's why I really needed to wait and digest everything to make this video. But I'll just say, like, all in all, if I haven't said it enough, fantastic season, fantastic finale, just like the whole rollout of the story, and it was just all so much of a puzzle to me, and it was all still so entertaining at the same time. I feel like some Housewives franchises miss that point because they'll start the season by saying, hey, we have this mystery, figure this out, right? And that can be fun, but then they show us all of this immaterial stuff for 12, 13 episodes that has nothing to do with nothing, but it all kind of revolved around this central mystery. All we have is this central storyline for the season, and it falls so flat. Whereas this season of Salt Lake City, we had this mystery that maybe I was just being silly, like I said, but I didn't really know that that was going to be a central mystery, right? When we start the season and Heather does the call thing, like I said, I thought that was about Jen. I thought that that was going backwards. I wasn't paying attention. And then we get this season of different dynamics and different fights and different everything throughout the season. We don't even know that this is coming. And then it smacks us in the back of the head. So I just thought that that was fantastic. Even giving us Monica, at least for one season, because I don't believe that she'll be back, but who knows. Giving us somebody, again, I've always said, the type of characters that you want on reality TV, they should be polarizing. Like, some people should feel this way. Some people should feel that way. Some people just shouldn't give a damn at all. Like, that's polarizing. You need that type of stuff to create those conversations for these shows to last. Especially a show like Salt Lake City, where a lot of people, I don't feel like we're really watching, and now a lot of people want to watch because these discussions are happening, right? So I just think that that was great. I know that there's a 3-part reunion coming. I'm a little bit weary about that because I don't know that we need a whole 3 parts. It feels like they may drag some things out, but let's see. You know, I hope it goes well. I think that the reunion seating makes sense now because when I first saw it and Monica and Heather had first share, I was like, but now it makes perfect sense. So I'm not mad at it. I really, 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 if I had to suggest a starting season, I'm always like start at the beginning, even though I haven't started at the beginning for all franchises. I would suggest start from the beginning for Salt Lake City because it's still freshly new, and I think that all of those dynamics really help to build a full story. But if somebody wants something explosive, I would say definitely start from last season and then come into this season and your mind will be blown. That's my personal thought. I'm hoping I'm not missing anything, but we have more time to talk when the reunion comes out. But yeah, the finale I thought was fantastic. And just from, you know, I like to split it. From a TV standpoint, the Monica decision, the production, the way the stories rolled out, the way the season went, the polarizing characters amongst everybody, not just Monica, the dynamics, fantastic. Like chef's kiss, I thought it was great. From a personal standpoint, not a fan of Monica. Y'all know she lost me a very long time ago, and it's so gratifying to see that I was right. I'm sorry. Like I don't operate to be right, you know, contrary to popular belief, but it does feel gratifying to know that you put that puzzle together very well. I'm a Big Brother girl, and I feel like I just won Big Brother. So but yeah, I really enjoyed that. And this is my first time back making a video in like 2 weeks. So I'm kind of all over the place. I may have missed some points, but let me get warmed back up and I will see y'all for the reunion.